Hello, everybody. This is Bart Shepperd. You are on Becoming Quantum Conscious at United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 107.7 and 103.5, broadcasting out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana. Also, we're on Roku, that's cable television, YouTube, Facebook, and the UPRN talk radio website, and other things all around the world. And today is a fun day. We are on a fun subject, and we are focused on fun, as we say in Louisiana, which I'm not from Louisiana. I used to be married to somebody from Louisiana, and as she would say, laissez les bon temps rouler, which basically means let the good times roll. So that's what we're here today for, as we have Robin Shepperd, our guest today, with the show. I've got to get this around. Oops, got to get this around. Life After Death, Preparing for the Fun Times. And welcome to the show, Robin.
Hi, Bart.
Good to have you here. I wanted to read a little bit of a backdrop to kind of get this theme. This is I love being on the edge, I think, and challenging people. And I guess maybe I'm over personifying a little bit about the fun stuff. But as you're going to learn today, whatever side of fence you're on, living on the other side of death, it can be quite satisfying. You know, we pick our own chains, we pick our own locks type of attitude. But Robin Shepperd, also a DC, that'd be a doctor of chiropractic. Robin Shepperd's fascination with death began as a 6-year-old girl when her father, devastated at the loss, when her father died at 6 years old. He was a doctor, family man of 4 children, leaving Robin the second to the youngest, with 3 other brothers and a mother to take care of everything. So when she was devastated by this loss, she would stare at the stars and implore him to return and take her with him. That's kind of an interesting, like, Dad, you gotta come pick me up. She mourned many losses throughout her life and never considered they had landed anywhere in heaven, still existing, but out of reach. Over the years, she studied death and dying, and her interests grew. She began to realize that she could talk to those who have crossed over, and is currently studying to be a medium, and has quite an expertise in this skill set. Robin also practices chiropractic after 30 years of being out there. She's partially retired. Nowadays, she combines 5 energetic psychology modalities to clear people's stuck places, whether that be living issues or preparing for dying issues, to allow them more freedom in their lives. She resides in Austin, Texas, and you can reach out to her at Dr.Robin at compassionateclearing.com, which is associated with her website, www.compassionateclearing.com. So, welcome to the show, Robin.
Thank you.
And so we're talking about death, and it just, it's always been this strong story with you of that, you've had a lot of people transition before your eyes, and it was probably at the most inappropriate times, particularly like a little 6-year-old girl that loved her father, adored him, was your guiding light as he adored you, and then kaboom, he's gone. And this has happened a few times. Um, and yet, even though there's that crisis, there's always this seeking that they're not really totally gone.
Right. Absolutely.
It's almost like an intuitive gut feeling that you had as a child.
I knew he was there. I just thought he was unreachable. I would talk to him, I would dream about him, but I was never really sure that he heard me until much later in life. And then we would have conversations. But it took a while for me to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm very clear that consciousness does not end with physical death of the body. There's no question in my mind about it. And I've studied death all these years, read books, listened to psychics and mediums, listen to people at Channel. There's a psychiatrist named Michael Newton who wrote several books. He was a man who would hypnotize his patients and get them to go back to their childhood to find out where this problem started. The problem was a lot of the problems started before this lifetime. And so he was flipped back into people talking about their other life and then other lives. And so eventually he had to accept the fact that reincarnation is reality. And then the most startling part was when they started talking about the in-between times, between one lifetime and another. Where did these people go? And they had very clear ideas about it. So I wrote this down so I could quote it. Michael Newton said, "On earth, we must cope with intolerance, anger, and sadness while searching for joy and love. We must not lose our integrity along the way, sacrificing goodness for survival and acquiring attitudes either superior or inferior to those around us." But he also wrote, "Our real home is a place of absolute peace, total acceptance, and complete love. As souls separated from our home, we can no longer assume these beautiful features will be present around us."
That's lovely.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Heidi Goal coming in and saying good day to both of us. And
Hi, Heidi.
From Boulder, Colorado. Welcome, Heidi. I think that's so beautiful. It's of that there is this place inside of us that has all of that knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
it's true. Well, I grew up in a family where I was very fortunate. At the time, I didn't realize it, but much, much later I did. My father was an MD, country doctor, Plano, Texas, and then my stepfather was a Methodist minister. So, all the time when we were sitting down to dinner or whatever, mother would say, "Well, how's old Miss Smith?" And he'd say, "Well, she died today." And she'd say, "Well, how's Mr. Smith doing?" And then same thing with the Methodist minister. He'd sit down, they'd all sit down to eat. She'd say, "Well, how's Joe Blow?" "Well, Joe Blow died today." "Oh, goodness." So a conversation like that, it was just like, and did you water the flowers? And did did you handle this business or that business? It was just normal conversation in our family. And I was never taught to fear death. I was very fortunate that way. Never taught to fear death.
yes. And it's just interesting to see where people take that with that, as opposed to a confidence inside of you that there is just something greater inside of you that has all of this memory. It's almost like this living life it's just one section of it.
Right. Right. Well, I know everybody's heard this cliche, but I think it's true. We're not bodies having a soul. We're souls having a body.
Mm.
And for right now. And when I ran into the concept of reincarnation, I was mid 20s, and I had heard about it before then and was intrigued, but I hadn't followed up on it. And then I got to Unity Church in Houston, and it was just accepted among the members that this church of 1,000 people, almost all of them believed in reincarnation. And when I started looking at all the things that were happening around me, reincarnation was the best explanation for life that I had.
Mm-hmm.
So that meant, okay, so we die. Well, all right. Well, we're going to spend some time somewhere else, and then we're going to come back and do it again and see if we can do it better each time.
To me, it really opens you up to the idea that you don't have to predicate your life on fear. Like you're going to mess up a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to go to hell, and therefore, at least for me, I was kind of gave up hope on having any type of spiritual redemption
Oh,
when I
oh.
was younger. Well, nobody was really there to guide me with that, and it's just funny how that all works. Uh, so reincarnation has this. Hey, Joe Fox. Reincarnation just has this assurance. To me, it promotes curiosity because it is that curiosity that says, let's see where that unknown is.
Well, and I've spent a lot of time studying that unknown, and there's so much written on it and so much spoken about it. I started out as a traditional Christian in the Methodist Church, not the hellfire and brimstone, thank goodness, but uh, I did that first, and then when I hit Unity Church in the 70s, all these metaphysical concepts came out, and I, I was so excited. I was just consumed with all this studying and reading. I'm a lifelong reader, and I'm a lifelong student. So, you know, I just went, and I was really blessed to have a teacher, a metaphysical teacher that was a mystic, Dr. John Rankin. But then, uh, much later, started studying Wicca, and which is an earth religion, and I learned how to do positive affirmations um, to affect change for the good. And then I went into a new mode where I just mostly didn't drop any of that, but went into the new mode of mostly thinking in terms of goddess as source.
Mm.
And now I realize that God is much more an amorphous being, but
So
but
I want to throw you out a question about like that.
let me finish that just a second. The goddess is somebody I can relate to personally. I can't relate to an amorphous being. So goddess is the form I choose to see as my creatress.
That was the question I was going to ask is, well, what's the difference that the goddess gives you than what God is? And to me, it's more like, well, God is beyond, and the goddess is something that is very much amongst the people, and such as that. But that's also true with those who have passed over, which is always the fascinating part about death, is that all of the people that are on the other side, whether they be immediate family members or others, maybe a great great grandmother, part of our ancestry, uh, part of maybe our culture. If, like, for example, with the American Indian, we have that ancestry of people radiating out there in the collective consciousness that We can literally dial up, so to
Yes,
speak.
yes, yes,
Maybe
Bart.
that's the concept. You had this. I've had this woman on before, and you're a big fan of Perdita Finn.
Hmm.
She wrote a book on Take Back the Magic,
Hmm.
and for a lot of us, that was an entry level book of understanding how to deal with people that were not a lot of fun relationships when we were both human. And then when the father, for example, in Perdita's case, goes to the other side, we have a totally different relationship with them.
Hmm.
You know, how did that book influence you?
Well, I thought the book was really interesting, but I had taken a course with Perdita on talking to the dead. And that really blew the doors open for me big time. And, she taught us to set up an altar with everybody's picture on it. And she said, what do the dead want? The dead want to be remembered. And so they're totally willing to help you. So call on them for anything you want. For instance, I call on Uncle Jack, who when I have car problems, because Uncle Jack, as a hobby, worked on cars. He was an engineer, but his hobby was sports cars. I call on a friend of mine who was a medicine woman when I'm ill. I call on these different people who are dead, and I keep their pictures on my altar for when I need information or help, and they come through. And the funny thing is, for the longest time, I wouldn't put my mother's picture on the altar because I was still very angry with her. Yeah. And I kept hearing in my head that she wanted to be on the altar. And I said, no, you just were so critical of me. You were so hard to get along with. And um, I don't want you on my altar. Well, one day I was looking for some very specific information in a trunk. I mean, a big trunk full of letters. And I was just kind of scanning everything.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly there was this letter in my hand that I decided not to scan. I decided to read it carefully, and it was from her, and it had exactly the information in it that I needed. And I knew that she did that, and I started laughing, and I said, okay, you win a spot on my altar. And I put her up on the altar.
Bless her heart. So Joe Fox has this really interesting concept that kind of feels with this. He goes, I fear the unknown. And, and I think that's something that we all contend with of what is unknown out there. And we're ever searching for answers, and that could be knowledge that we're reading from the book, the internet, etc. But there's also this intuitive unknown of information that is kind of sometimes beyond the intellect. It's personal. It's finding personal answers that you had to find within yourself or within your culture or kind of what's next in the world, so to speak.
Well,
And these people, your ancestors, your relatives, have this more open awareness of what's going on. It's like we're seeing this much, like this much sometimes, and they're this much.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, in learning to talk to them, and it took me a little while to hear back what they had to say. I would talk to them, and now if I get quiet, um, impressions come in, and they give me information that I did not have.
Hmm.
And so I have no question that I'm talking to and listening to my relatives, and they do things for me that I ask for help with. I think I got the most powerful stuff from the NDEs, near death experience people, and they would come back and they would tell. I don't know if I'm saying new information here to some people, or if everybody knows what I'm talking
Just
about.
saying,
But
near-death experience indeed.
okay. Um, so when you die, most people report these people who die and then have been revived. Most of them say that you walk into the light, and usually it's a tunnel, but in any event, it's light, and you walk towards someone, and someone comes to you to escort you further along, and it's always somebody that you knew and loved. um, if there's nobody that's dead that you knew and loved, then it's a spiritual figure, depending on what your religious beliefs are, that comes for you. But there's always some loving being that comes for you, and then they have a conversation with you, and then you have a life review, and you look at everything you've ever done, which has to be kind of a horrifying experience when they're looking at the negatives, and a pleasing experience when they look at, when you look at all the kind of generous things that you've done. But this has been reported over and over and over by credible people, these near death experiences. And so these people have all decided to come back, or they've been told they have to come back. They have to come back into their body, and they are in a radically different place when they return. They're at peace. The only thing is, they wish they could go back. They wish they could leave because it's harsh on this earth, and they want to go back home. But they come back with renewed purpose and without any fear, and move forward in their lives. So these people, for a while, I just followed every last story that came out with avid interest. Just fascinating. And like I say, some of the stories are a little bit different, but there's this major theme that goes through almost all of them. That's very similar, and it's hard to deny that.
I kind of think of it as like a washing, so to speak. In other words, you have your density in your body from all your emotions, conflicts you've had, things you've not resolved inside of yourself that turn into habits, addictions, personality characteristics that may not be so great. And when you go to the other side, you get a little bit of a washing of that to where you can start to see it differently. And we have a mutual friend that went through this. And she was a very, let's say, egotistical, self-absorbed being. And she came out from the other side, and suddenly all of these psychic abilities started popping up. And at the same time, there were still a lot of issues there. And to me, it kind of gave her a choice. She could start looking at herself with a lot more humility, sincerity of like, well, what are those issues? As opposed to, oh, I'm an enlightened soul and I have everything together. And the point is, it doesn't matter how much caca you have cleared and moved, we still got stuff to work on. We get this jump start, so to speak, sometimes when we go to the other side.
Yeah.
And so this comes to another question for you, since you are popping in and popping out on the other side by asking relatives. And, when you dip into that reality and have this conversation, they pop into your reality. Some of that has to bleed across. In other words, their vibration comes into you, and therefore you have a possibility of becoming a lighter soul yourself.
Well, I'd never thought of it that way, Bart. I'd never thought of it that way. I just, I like to ask them to guide me,
Mm-hmm.
and to help make me more whole. And more loving and less judgmental, more thoughtful and more generous. And I think that helps. It's been a comfort to be with these people these last few years during the chaos that's going on here, especially in the last year that the chaos has been going on here. There's a part of me that it just brings out feelings that I'm really shocked that I've had feelings of violence, of wanting to hurt people that are tearing our place down. And I have to tearing our country down, and I have to go back and ask for help from the people who have crossed over and ask them to take away these feelings of violence that I have.
Yeah, and it's like they are seeing a larger perspective with that. And I think vibrationally, we just have to keep opening to see something bigger without a judgment. And it's really easy to jump into that impulse of, they say it in the Bible, anger begets anger.
Mm-hmm.
And when we go to the other side, they're not in that paradigm.
Totally different paradigm.
What are they begetting, you think?
Well, from what I understand is that when we die and we go through the tunnel and we greet all our loved ones that have crossed over, we then go through a review of our life. And after that, the interesting thing is first we're allowed to play, totally play. If we want a Cadillac, all we have to do is think it and it shows up.
Woohoo!
If we want a really hot lover, that lover will show up for us. If we want a palace to live in, a palace will show up.
So what do you think is the lesson that's being presented to us
With that,
by getting anything you want? It's like, it's Christmas every day.
yeah.
What are you going to unwrap? Yeah.
Well, I think that what's really being presented is, look, okay, you've got these things. Are they really making you happy? Is this really what you really want? I mean, you've wanted this all your life, and now look at it. Look at it. Is it really what you want? And so after you go through that phase, I think that you realize that material things are not it. It gives you a chance to really get it. That the material things on this earth are not what's important.
So almost like it's last chance for materialism. One more try. Does it make you happy?
And so when you grow bored with that, then you get to travel the universes and get it all figured out. You can ask questions, you can see not everybody that's here has incarnated from here before. Like you were telling me about your friend Penny, who's
Yes.
never been on Earth before. She's been in other places. Well, we can choose to go.
And that would be for people who've been on the show before. Listen, that would be Penny Loftus, sound healer of magnitude.
Okay. And also, you may choose to go somewhere else. Now, as I understand from listening to Bashir, Bashir, by the way, is a channeled being. They are channeled by a man called Daryl Anka.
Okay, so I want to stop you right now because we're at midpoint, and we'll get into that after a brief break.
Okay, go for it.
You are listening to Robin Heart Shepperd, Dr. Robin Heart Shepperd for some of you, and there'll be a doctor of chiropractic, but a doctor nevertheless. Dr. Robin Heart Shepperd, and this show is life after death, where the fun really starts, something like that. My name is Bart Sharp, and you're on Becoming Quantum Conscious at United Public Radio and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 107.7 and 105.3 out of New Orleans, Louisiana. This is also on Roku, the UPRN talk radio site, YouTube, Facebook, and other internet platforms all around the world. So we're saying hi to everybody, and we're at midpoint. And let's see. Uh, I like this. We'll start with Joe Fox here. You guys, I'm actually in a state of depression over material things. I used to have money, now I do not. I'm having a very hard time with it. And I think that
Well,
would be with anything about loss.
well, yes, anything about loss, but so often loss precipitates a crisis that allows you to think more expansively. And um, I'm sorry you're having a hard time with that. However, I believe that there's important spiritual lessons for you in this. I can't tell you what they are. Even if I knew you well, I wouldn't be able to tell you what they are. But I can say that you can choose to turn this into a spiritual lesson, or look for, just keep praying and saying, what is there for me to learn in this? What do I need to know?
And also, it's, the wholeness inside of ourselves. I mean, we all have lost so many things in life and had challenges. And I think it comes down, you have to respect the story of whatever happened to you. I mean, that's reality. Things happen, you know. And can you refer to this greater space inside of you that is spiritual, or that is a space of something lighter? And that to me is cultivating it. And that's, to me, is what you've been learning by connecting to this spirit world, because the other side is full of the highest vibrations.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least it's beyond what I don't want to say that beyond what we can imagine, because I think we can be there and we can imagine what it's like to have light fully in our body, and it's a joyous experience. But to me, that's what I always try to lean into, is how can I have that no matter what's going on in my life?
That's
You know?
beautiful, Bart. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's what your friends from the other side are trying to let you know.
Well, I think so. And also, I just, I like to ask the question, how does it get any better than that? How does it get any better than this? And you open up, and it opens up and allows the universe to tell you how your life can get better. You're giving an invitation to the universe, but also talk to your ancestors. Call on your parents or your grandparents, or whoever, even a good friend who's died, uh, and ask them to help you out with that. I'll tell you, Perdita taught us, she called everybody our ancestors. So she said it's not just the traditional family only. And so I started looking wider at people that I admired. And sometimes when I'm in a bad mood, Joe, I call on Flip Wilson. I don't know if you're old enough to know who Flip Wilson was, but he was a comedian who was hysterically funny without ever using any bad language. Um, and he had his own TV program for a while. And even today, I mean, Flip's been dead, I don't know, 20 years, but I still go back on YouTube and listen to some of his comedy skits, uh, because he's so funny. And if I'm in a really bad mood, I'll call on Flip. I'll say, Flip Wilson, will you come be with me today and help me see some humor in whatever's going on right now?
Yes, it's a great thing to do. But let's get down to some brass tacks of the logistics of how to do this, because it's one thing they say, well, I can just dial them up and they'll just show up. And a lot of people are going, well, how do you do that? What
Okay.
can you give us some like
Yeah, all
exercises
you
and
do is
perspectives?
call out their name. Now you can do it quietly to yourself, but I always do it out loud. And I'm working right now in my mediumship studies with my brother Rex. Rex died 2 years ago, and I get up in the morning and come in and sit on the couch and talk to him, and I just say, uh, Rex Shepperd, I want you here with me. And then I greet him. I greet him as if he's sitting down beside me. And I say, will you help me today? I want to know more about mediumship. I want to experience some manifestation of you. And the other day, I felt him flop down beside me on the couch, and I was sitting close to the end, and I felt like he didn't have enough room, and I scooted over for him, which in retrospect is pretty funny because he could shape himself any way he wants to because he didn't have the constrictions of the body. But he sat down, and I said, "Okay, thank you, but can you show yourself to me?" And I closed my eyes for just a second, and I saw an outline of him in light.
Mhm.
And I was so grateful. And I said, "Thank you, thank you so much." Always, you want to thank them. You want to call their name out loud, think of them, and then thank them for showing up for you. And they'll do it in different ways. Not too long ago, I was in a Goodwill shop, and I looked across the aisle, and there was a box that Rex had made. I knew Rex had made it. He made beautiful items out of bristlecone pine, and he had made that. There was this box. There was no question in my mind that he had made it. But there was a sticker over the bottom. He always signed it with an S that looked more like a backwards Z. And I took the box to the front and asked the clerk if she would remove the price tag for me. I didn't want anybody catching me removing the price tag. And she took it, and there was the S. And the woman behind the counter said, "Well, would you look at that? He just came to say hello to you." And I knew it was true. And what I think is that the people that have died who love you try on a regular basis, especially the first year or two after they die, they try to get your attention. And they can do that in a whole bunch of ways. If you want to go to my website, I have a whole series. If you'll look under articles and look under death, Joe, it'll tell you how people will appear to you. They may drop a butterfly, the fly right in front of your face, or a dragonfly. They may coins are another way to do that. There are a whole bunch of ways that we don't have time to go into today, but I've definitely written that out in 3 articles.
One way that I do it, and I'm less on the people that have transitioned over. I'm more on high spiritual beings like Mother Mary or Buddha or Yeshua. But I will ask the question, where is their presence in my energetic field? It's almost like applied kinesiology or muscle testing of asking a yes no question. And then I start to scan with this invisible eye or something of my awareness. And if I feel something very light, like around me, and might be 4 foot behind me, like on my backside, I know that that's their presence. And I start getting my focus back there and cultivating that awareness of what that is. Therefore, their presence becomes stronger in me through my own intention.
Mm. Yeah, so they're not going to stick around if you're not paying attention. They're going to head on out. But it
Can,
it, it
can,
for
can I read this?
What?
from Heidi. I gave my mom 6 months after she passed, and she would need to complete Afterlife
101.
one first. But
Right.
she did show up. Uh,
Flicking light
flick light,
switches.
light. Your vision is better than
Well,
mine.
I've got, you want to part my reading
Yeah.
glasses? Yeah, well, that's great. And Heidi made a really good point that generally, after someone passes through the veil, you give them some time. Don't be calling on them constantly. And they do stick around for a week or two, sometimes longer, to try to comfort you and let you know that they're okay. But then they go through life review and a bunch of stuff, so they're really really busy, and that is just courtesy on Heidi's part to give her mother that chance to do her own processing before she comes back and starts interacting with Heidi.
From what I understand of your bedroom, you have an altar there that has 20 photographs, like nicely framed pictures of all of these relatives of yours
Mm-hmm.
and people that you admire that are passed on the other side. I mean, you can say that, well, that's a symbolic gesture or, it reassures me, but a deeper question would be, does it empower you? Like their presence is there more profoundly that you have put them in a place of honor?
Well, it empowers me, and I, I think that it's important to honor them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like with my mother, I had a hard time even getting her up on the altar. But I did. I ran into something. I'm trying to remember where I ran into this, but just the other day, somebody said, "Oh, I know. It's the shamanic woman, not Mike Horner, but the woman that worked with him all the time."
Mm-hmm.
Um, she said, look, in this culture, in the Western culture, we spend so much time focusing on what our parents did wrong, what our caretakers did wrong. And she said, other cultures will focus on what they did right.
Mm.
And boy, it was just like somebody turning on a light switch for me, because um, I realized that I haven't done that with my mother, and there were many gifts that she gave me that have been useful in my life, and one of them is that um, mostly I've never met a stranger. I just, wherever I go, I'm able and willing to talk to people, whether it's in the grocery store or on the sidewalk or at a zoo. I can talk to people, and what's amazing to me is that often the people that I talk to offer me some information that's really good, or a connection or something. That's
Mm.
amazing. So she gave me that, and she gave me a bunch of things,
Yeah.
and
I think that's part of what magic is, or a magical life. And that when you're starting to stretch out with your ancestors, your loved ones, other side, your loved ones that are here now, your higher powers, and you actually have an embodiment. It's not an intellectual concept. It's partially intellectual, but you're a living embodiment of it. And everything about you stretches. You are a bigger embodiment as a result. Therefore,
as a result of what, Bart?
all of this willingness to receive all of these people and
Mm,
receive
mm.
their energetic connection.
And their wisdom.
Yes, and that is an energetic space that develops in you. Therefore, more good stuff starts showing up. You start creating a reality here that is more profound.
Well, yeah, and when you think about my friend Shorty, who was so Whitey, who was so uh, insulting to me sometimes on the earth plane. He comes in and helps me with my gardening. He's a fantastic gardener, and he's so pleased that I'm asking for help. With, well, why isn't this growing here? What did I do wrong with my with my eggplant that it's not growing. Tell me what to do. What do I need to do to give me some eggplants? And so Whitey's always jumping in there and helping me, and he's just delighted to do it.
Mm. You told me the story once about, I think it was your great grandmother, who's, or maybe great great grandmother, but of course she hasn't been around in a long time. But yet she was still available, and you knew that if she's a great great grandmother, she's likely come back and is embodied as another body, but yet her spirit is still available on the other side.
Right. Well, yes, I know that's, I'm glad you asked that question because it's a good question and people ask it frequently. Basically, as I understand it, we have an oversoul, and that oversoul can divide and have 2 or 3 or 4 different experiences going on. So there's a part of whoever has crossed over that's still there and can connect with you. Um, so so even if somebody has returned, like my father has been gone 60 years, 70 years, and he went through a period when I was talking to him. When I was in Wicca, we used to have rituals, particularly at Samhain or Halloween, and I would especially talk to him then, but also other times. We believed at the time, and most people still do, that the veil between the living and the dead is thinnest for about a 10-day period during the Halloween period. I have since recently read, and this makes total sense, that the veil is thin all the time. That the Catholic Church wanted to just put it all into one. They didn't want these people being superstitious, so they made it All Saints Day and put it into one little day where you could talk to your dead and then shut up and get on about your life. And but I think the veil is thin all the time. We just have to work with it. As a matter of fact, uh, I have 2 Facebook groups. One of them is Life with Ghosts, and the other is The Thinning Veil, where if you go get on those groups, you're going to find a lot of information, and it will be really helpful.
Juicy. We missed one part that I wanted to bring up, and we only got 5 minutes, so we're going to have to get with it.
Okay.
When you're talking about the seven levels of ascension that Bashir, or AKA Daryl Anka, was presenting, that could you just give us an overview of that?
Oh, thank you so much. That's so important. What we're told is that when we die, there are several different levels we can go to. There is no hell, folks. There is no hell. The Catholic Church invented that to scare people and keep them in line.
It's only in this reality, folks.
Yeah. So, yeah. So there are 7 different levels that we can go to. The first 2, the bottom levels, are for people who have tortured, raped, killed, violent people, vicious people, and they go for remedial work. And their soul gets to look at it, look what's going on, and see what kind of incarnation they could choose for next time to remediate their problems. And then the next 5 levels all depend on your kindness to others, and how deeply you have embodied that over the years, and especially in the last years that you're alive. So I can tell you that of those 5 levels, I would like to be at the highest level possible. And in doing so, it makes me work even harder to be considerate of other people, to be gracious to other people, to be kind to other people.
It's all spot on. Our kindness in having fun in this reality and letting that infection of funness come out no matter what the circumstances is so important. It doesn't matter what's happening to you. You can always choose to have that part of you at least alive, even though, you know, it's a painful reality, you know, for
Well, and
sure.
life is painful, and that's why I'm looking forward to dying. It's going to be so much easier on the other side. Life, for me, knowing about the cruelties that people inflict on other people is just really a constant challenge for me to maintain stability with that, and just to get a break and get to go to the other side where everything's light and I'm not carrying a body that stubs its toe and breaks its arm and bangs its head, that I just get to float free and be with whoever. And oh my gosh, can you imagine the excitement of getting to speak to Nostradamus? Boudica is one of my favorites. I know she's maybe not one of the most deeply spiritual, but Mary Magdalene, Mother
Yeah.
Mary, so many beings that I get to be with when I get over there, and knowing that my loved ones will that are here on the planet will come along soon, and I'll get to be with them again too.
And to be a devil's advocate, as I usually am, my little horns are starting to pop out of my head right
Whoop,
now.
whoop.
You know, this is what a spiritual teacher told me, Gary Douglas, creator of Access Consciousness. He was talking, well, you're infinite when you die. You know, you go to that space, just like we've been talking about. And I said, well, Gary, why don't we all die? And he said to me, he goes, but Bart, if you learn how to be infinite in this body right now, think of how much fun it will be to eat food and to play, to make love, to go out and do all of these things that life has to offer. And that's the whole thing. Can you be in that infinite space and enjoy all of that? And to me, it's like an
While you're
infection.
here.
Yeah, while you're here, it's like an infection that changes everybody. And that to me got me on the consciousness train like that. It's like, I'm on board. So I just love that. It's always stayed with me.
Well, and there's always something new to learn.
Always
I'm
is.
fixing to take a class on how to talk to flowers with
Yes.
Mary Kearns, and I'm very excited about that.
Yes, Mary Curves. That sounds really, really amazing. But we're coming to the end of the show, so I want to ask you a question. What's going on with you right now that you would like to share with everybody? And you can catch Dr. Robin at compassionateclearing.com, and that's clearing, not clearings, and compassionateclearing.com. What's going on with you? What do you have to offer? How can people get in touch with you and do sessions with you and all of that good stuff? And
Well, I do energy clearings, or energy psychology. And in doing those clearings, I can help you with your fear of death. Um, I can help clear the scary parts that have been beat into you about whatever, and um help you be okay with not knowing, be okay with the unknown. And I tell you, I know a lot about that because was such a control freak for so many years, and I still have some of that going on. But just needing to control my environment because I didn't want to deal with what was
so it's
unknown.
really about being a racer to just clear a lot of that emotional gunk and limiting gunk. And
Right.
also, when you work with somebody that lives in an expanded field, they can see things that you might be missing. So that's all the beauty of it. And I want you to think about one last word of wisdom that you want to give because we have about 2 minutes left. While you think about your parting wisdom that you want to share with everybody, I'm going to let everybody know that you are listening to Dr. Robin Heart Shepperd of CompassionateClearing.com. And we're in Fun of the Afterlife. and the fun of being in this life all at the same time. And my name is Bart Sharp, and this is Becoming Quantum Conscious. And you are on United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 107.7 and 105.3 out of New Orleans, Louisiana. So, Robin, what parting wisdom do you want to share with everybody?
Real quick for Heidi, Facebook groups, yes, Thinning Veil, Life with Ghosts, and The Way of the Rose.
Yes.
Powerful,
Good
powerful
words.
groups. My word of wisdom is start looking for ways you can be kind to other people. Walking down the sidewalk, man with a child, smile at the child, smile at the man, say beautiful child, keep on going. It lights him up. There's so many ways that don't cost a thing to be kind to others, and just be thinking about them.
Yeah.
That's my words of wisdom.
You get to gift as well when you do, of being a service to others. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Heidi, Joe, for interacting with us on the show. And we'll see you next week with Kimberly Kind and be talking about family constellations and some very advanced skill levels and surfing in the limbo of family constellations. So until then, we'll see y'all next week and wish y'all everybody much goodness and joy, happiness on this side and the other side.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.